Started now. So here we are. Thank you very much, Jesse and Jay, for this small little interview that we're gonna do. And first of all, this is an little conversation that we're gonna have. So your audience, your subscribers, your people are going to know a little bit more about you both and your world. So
Mm-hmm.
to begin, I would like you both to introduce yourself to the people.
Well, I am Jessica.
Jason.
Okay, very good. And how long have you both been married?
We've been married for 12 years, but we've been together for 15.
Okay. So so you have been together quite a long time, so you know each other pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So where did you two meet?
We met online.
As plenty of people do nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you both met and you got together, did parenthood became a subject to talk about at some point, or it just came by surprise?
Parenthood became our first fight.
Okay. Why is that, Jay? I see your face and
You
something
remember
tells.
it?
I love kids, and she didn't. That was it.
Okay, that's a
I
very,
mean,
of
yeah. So
course.
didn't want
Mhm.
to have kids. So.
No. He wanted to have many. At the time I met him, I was 25 and he was 27. And he wanted to have, now we were just started dating. He wanted to have like 3 or 4 kids before he turned 30. And I'm like, that's first of all, I think physically impossible. Um, and and he's correct. I never had the desire to be a mom, you know. My desires for my life were not in that direction.
Mhm.
And so for him to tell me he expected like 3 or 4 kids by a certain age, I didn't even want one. And now you're telling me you want 3 or 4. So when we realized that we weren't on the same page when it came to kids, it created an interesting argument.
Of course, but this is very relatable because many parents go through the same argument, nor couples itself, like
Mhm.
they do have these kind of arguments as well. But
Mhm.
then your first child came. So was that expected, Jesse?
Yes, I finally got to a point where we were in our marriage, we were happy, and we wanted something to represent the both of us, something that nobody else can replicate. So we decided in August we were going to try to have a baby.
Mm-hmm. So were you happy with her decision, her change of mind, Jay?
Sure. Yeah, I was. Yeah. I mean, the fight that we had originally we got to the point where I just, I guess I caved and I was okay with not having any other children because we have my older son, so it wasn't much of an issue. But then when
Okay.
then when she got the bug or whatever it was,
The bug, the
the
urge,
baby fever or
baby
whatever,
fever.
it was
Mm-hmm.
quite a surprise, but I was okay with it.
He
You
was
were okay,
thrilled. Are you
or you
kidding me?
were happy?
Yes,
He was
yeah.
thrilled. He couldn't believe he was the look on his face when I said I think I want to have a baby. He was just like, okay.
Okay, that's great. So you have your first child, and how did that feel for you to become a mom finally?
Oh my gosh. I played a big part in little Jason's life. I got him when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and I had always had so much love for him. He was not my biological son, but I treated him like my own, and I loved him so much, and I couldn't imagine my life not being there. I mean, we went through our trials and tribulations. It's hard when a woman's coming in trying to run the show when
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't there before. And I thought my heart was full, so full with him. But then when I gave birth, it was a different kind of love. When I love little Jason, but the love I had for this baby that I kept protected in my stomach, and I felt moving around, and it was so it's you can't explain it, you can't describe it. It's just so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I love both my all my children just the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you see anything change from Jessie after she gave birth, Jay?
As far as
Her personality, her points of view, her way to be. Did she change a little bit after her
no, I
first?
don't think so. No, I think she was always pretty much the same. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I mean,
Is it because you saw me with little Jason and how I was with him?
yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny because with little Jason, I think when he was younger, he thought I was hard on him because he wasn't my biological child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after he saw how I was with Josiah, he actually realizes I was easy on him,
Right.
And it's fun. And I explained to him now, as he's an adult, I'm like, I had to be easy on you because I knew the fact that we weren't blood connected. I never wanted you to think I was being hard on you for that reason. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, I'm like, and as you can see, I'm harder on Josiah and Joshua than I ever was with you. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I see that now. I'm like, because I'm like, I never wanted you to be worried that I was being mean to you because you weren't my real son. He sees it now.
That's very good that he understands and he can see that. He can realize the difference. That's very good. So now you have your first child together and everything is going well until when, Jesse? When did you notice that something was not completely okay?
It was the summer of 2016. That summer, my pastor had asked me to be the director of our church's vacation Bible school. And I was in charge of arranging everything, all the different classes, the age groups, and I was so excited because it was Josiah's first year that he could participate.
Hold on. Let me just say this.
Okay.
As Josiah was getting older, from day one when he was born, any slight thing that she saw, any slight movement that he made, tippy toe walking, uh, um, repeating, no matter what it was always, oh no, he might have autism.
I
Oh no, he
don't
might have
remember
autism.
that. I would say that's interesting. I'd be like,
No,
Okay, but he knows you very well. So he read that expression that with that's interesting.
it was a lot more than just that's interesting.
Okay,
No,
but this is a very good thing because in the first video, she talks about her experience, about this
right.
church experience. And I wanted to hear your point of view because I know that you didn't see it the same way at the beginning. What did you feel? What did you think?
Well, this is what I was getting to. See,
Mhm,
now all of that leading into this vacation Bible study thing,
mhm,
school, whatever it is.
yeah.
That's where I was like, all right, come on, you're getting out of hand, or it's getting ridiculous now with you know every. I mean, like I said, it was any little thing that it was. It was tippy toe walking,
mhm.
repeating, spinning in circles. God, you name it. It
His
was. It
memory,
was.
his really wonderful memory,
Yeah. I mean,
his level of
anything.
intellect.
So when it got to, so then when the it all came to a head, I guess you can say. Um, we kind of butted heads on it still because it was like, all right, enough is enough. Come on,
Mhm.
you know. She dealt with children with autism, for a long time, and she was still working with them at that point. So it was just like, you know,
You
Well,
thought I was being paranoid.
that's a
yeah. I
very
mean,
very good point of view that I really want him to talk about because parents obviously not necessarily will think the same thing, both of them. There will be differences, but because she had experience working with children with disabilities, many, autism one of them, you thought like, okay, you're being paranoid. And I would probably have felt the same if I was in your position. So that's quite a normal place to be when you come in a situation like this.
Mhm.
So when did you change your mind?
And also, we have a friend who's got a child right around Josiah's age, like,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
and she also works with children with disabilities, and they both would discuss these
No,
little
she
things.
she never thought that her son had autism. Hello. She
They
that
would,
would be a cat. Her son wasn't talking at all,
Mm-hmm.
and she never thought autism. She just knew he wasn't talking, and she also had a little bit of speech experience. And what it actually, the interesting thing, what turned out is that she never gave her son the pacifier, and she would poke holes in the baby's bottle to make it easier for him to drink because he was hungry, and she learned because she did those things, the muscle in the back of the mouth never developed, and
Mm.
that's what uh, delayed his speaking. So, but
Okay.
she never thought he was on the spectrum. She just knew he wasn't talking, and that's, that was her concern.
I just think that working with children with disabilities kind of enhance her
Mm-hmm.
views on a lot of things.
I call it getting a jump start because of all of our experiences and what we see and what could happen if you don't deal with the problem as soon as possible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Now, this is very important. This is very important that you mentioned, Jesse, but also you need to see it from his point of view. And you would probably be the same if you were him. You would
Oh yeah.
probably think like, come on, you're just exaggerating again. I was like, don't you
Right.
think you're going too far? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I understand how he feels because there are situations in his life where
mm-hmm,
he's suspicious of certain people, is suspicious of certain things, and I'm like, not everyone's the same. I understand when you are immersed in something, you can't help but veer in that direction when you're
mm-hmm,
when it's what you think you're seeing is familiar territory. It's like, with him, with myself, yeah.
mm-hmm. So when did that change, Jason?
Oh, I mean, it changed really pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm,
After this situation with the BBS and him going to pre-K and stuff like that. It, I got I wasn't fighting the process after that.
mm-hmm,
I'm gonna say something. I remember you were fighting with me. You didn't want me to get evaluated. I told you the evaluations were going to start. Well, no, let me finish. The evaluations were going to start, and he didn't want it. He's like, I'm not okay with this. This is not something I'm on board with. But I know you're going to do it anyway. And I said, yes, correct. I am going to go through with this. I'm going to find out what's going on. I'm going to get him the help he needs because at that point, it's not getting a diagnosis. It's just getting related services to help him cope in pre-K.
I just wasn't okay with the
mm-hmm.
tags, the what's it called?
The diagnosis, the
labels.
labels. That's what it. You know what it
That's
is.
what
That's what it is. I understand how he feels about this because when you hear I know when I grew up, when you hear someone's in a special ed classroom, you think there's something mentally wrong with them, and
Mm-hmm.
they are a little ostracized at times, or the teachers maybe won't push as hard, um, and you know what? Sometimes the kids need to be, you need to take it easy with them, and some days you don't need to. Little Jason, he was a special ed student also. He learned differently,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my husband's experience already having a child in a special ed classroom put fear in him. He doesn't think very highly of the special ed system.
Now, with that in mind, my question for to you, Jay, is: were you afraid of what you were going to have to go through with this, or were you afraid for how was it going to be for your child? Like, where did your fear came from?
it was not. It wasn't a fear. It was just just the label part of it. That's
Yes.
the only thing
But were
that,
you concerned about the label on your behalf or on our kids' behalf? Like what they were going to experience?
yeah, I guess what they were going to experience.
Because in like at the end, it does come to what you have to deal with as well, because everything that the child is experiencing comes back home, and you need to deal with it as well. So it is like a whole experience, but it starts there. Now, very important point of view with this label thing, like labeling children. We all went through this labeling things since we were children as well.
Right. Yeah.
Now, his diagnosis was autism, but it was more than autism. What was
He
it?
had, he had a dual diagnosis. The primary diagnosis was ASD, autism spectrum disorder, with a secondary diagnosis of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And he was given that,
No.
yes, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity, ADHD. Hyperactivity is one word.
So just ADD.
No, ADHD. The reason why he got the
Oh.
ADHD diagnosis, not because he was a hyperactive child, because he had no impulse control. That's why he got that diagnosis. You know, because when the doctor told us ADHD, I said, but he's not a hyper kid. She's like ADHD doesn't necessarily mean they're a hyper child. It means he's got no impulse control whatsoever. And the reason why, an example of that was in pre-K, he jumped on top of the table, flipped off into the circle time on top of the kids, and he
But
did stuff like
I
that.
like that you mentioned this, because here my next question was like, many parents will think like he's just being a brat, or he just wants to call attention. What can
Right.
you say about that? Like, what is the difference? How do you, what can you say to those parents that have that experience and they say like, no, he's just being a brat? Because I heard a lot of people saying that. And like, he's not a special needs kid. He's just a brat. He just wants to draw attention. He just wants attention.
People need to realize that children do things based on, they do it based on a reaction to something. For example, if there's a problem at home and the child feels like they're not getting attention, then maybe in school they're going to find other ways to get attention. Um, if a child is having a temper tantrum in a store and the parent, because they want something, and the parent just gives it to them because they want to shut them up, the child knows all I have to do is act up and I'll get what I want. My son was in sensory overload. There was too many bodies in the room. The classroom was too colorful with all the charts, and those pre-K classrooms are adorable, but it's too much. The noise, the smell, everything. He was in complete and total sensory overload, and this was him reacting accordingly. Children do things, and you want to label it as brat, but there's a reason why they're doing it. Even if it is even if it is categorized as a bratty action, well, that's because someone has reinforced their negative behavior. If you don't give in to a child and give them what they want when they're not acting in an appropriate way, then you're kind of at fault. Now, let me add this part. I am very guilty of giving in to not so much Josiah, because Josiah's always been good. If we tell him no and stuff, he's like, okay. Joshua, because Joshua can wear you down like no one's business. And sometimes I'm thinking, I want a little peace and quiet. Sure, you can have that entire candy bar at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yes, go right ahead. Just to make you stop, because you know what? As parents, you're tired, and you need to do what you got to do to survive. But I do keep in mind that this will be a problem later on.
Well, it is, of course, it's gonna be a problem, but it's very important that you make that difference. And it's very important that you point that out, Jesse. There is a big difference. It's not just like being a brat, because being a brat, maybe it happens like just once and it's just about one thing and then it's over. But you were observing a repetitive behavior, and it was a sum of many things. It was not just one thing, it was a sum of many things. what were you able to spot those things as well, Jay? Because you had no experience. You were just hearing what she was telling you, what Jesse was telling you, like, look this, look that. But you had no experience and you were seeing this now, knowing a diagnose. Did you see this differently now? Did you spot those things that she was telling you before?
Yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's why when Joshua was born, we kind of immediately went towards
Mm-hmm.
something being wrong rather than just saying let's
Mm-hmm.
roll the dice and not
Okay. So
no,
you were
so
more alert now. You were just like, oh, I see
yeah,
this now.
right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was. The minute when Joshua was exhibiting, see, with Josiah, we never realized anything was really wrong until we had to put him in that social environment where he
Mm-hmm.
was overwhelmed and acting accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua did have certain behaviors that were unusual, like banging his head on the floor, banging his head on the wall, rubbing his forehead along the floor and the wall. He does this thing. He still does it, where he just shakes his head back and forth.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be honest with you, I was not thinking autism. I was concerned about other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my head, the logic I'd come up with, great, I have one child with autism. What's the chances of having another child with autism? So I didn't think autism was going to be it with Joshua. I thought I was actually concerned it was more of a medical thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why he was wanting to hit his head and put pressure and stuff like that. But the minute I remember we were laying in bed and Joshua was sitting on his lap and he was doing the head shaking thing, and I said, listen, he's doing a couple of things besides that. I'm like, I would like to see what's going on. He's like, call the doctor. Now, no hesitation, no argument, no, well, give me your justification. Call the doctor on Monday, make an appointment, get this going.
Well, that's very good. You were just more alert about this, and you were just like jumping to action directly in the second time. Now, I know that role, like Jesse, you are super overprotective, like because they are your children and because they are special. And I'm not afraid to use the word special because I see them as a treasure. These children are special in such a beautiful way because they don't communicate the same way we do, but they are fantastic human beings. There are just that we just need to understand them better.
Yeah.
So I am not afraid to call them special in that way. So your role is a very protective mother role. What is your role in this? Do you feel like you need to be different from her, or how does it change? How is the interaction usually at home? What is your role? How do you see your role?
Um, as far as
Are you
dealing with,
overprotective as well? Do
oh
you
yeah,
feel like super?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay. Tell me
I
about
mean,
it.
I was always overprotective. I mean, even with
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
my older son.
Yeah, he's overprotective because that's the kind of dad he is. He's not overprotective because they're special needs children.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
What Jay is he's play. He equals play. He's fun.
Okay.
Dad is
Okay.
fun.
Yes. So you are not like that, Jesse.
Mommy can be silly, but when they're upset, when they're hurt, they come running to me. They come to me for the comfort, and they come to Daddy for the wrestling.
What do you like that? Do you like to see that difference, Jay?
yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. I love that interaction because the way that I see it from outside is like you are like two opposites, and you both together offer both of your children, offer them exactly everything they need. They know who to go to for everything.
Then
So
and that's what works well is where I'm lacking, he's strong in, and where he lacks, I'm strong in.
mhm.
So it's good.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Good.
what would be one? Here comes something more recent. Is like we have this COVID situation. This the world is changing the way they are living now. The new normal is different. How has this changed than the usual interaction or the usual plans that you had? Like how did all of this change now at home? I'm pretty sure it's not so easy, but tell me.
Oh, it's not easy at all. It's definitely not easy at all. I mean, with people with autism, children, adults, they have structure and things that they have to have, and
Routine.
routines and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Now with this whole COVID thing, it's just been,
It threw our children for a loop.
yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
Josiah was having a hard time processing the fact that he wasn't going to be going to a building every day. I remember when we started with the remote learning back in March and April, he
Mm-hmm.
blatantly told me, "You can't teach me and I can't learn here. This is
Mm-hmm.
not my school, and you're not my teacher." He blatantly said it to me. And I said, "I understand, honey, that this is not the norm for you, but this is going to be the norm for right now." And can I tell you, it's only recently he's finally going with the schoolwork. He'll let me know he doesn't like it and this is not normal, but he understands he has a responsibility. I said, your responsibility in your life is to be a child and to be a student. I'm like, you've perfected being a child. You need to perfect being a student, even though you're doing it here, which is not what you're used to.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
still very hard. I mean,
Yeah.
he won't even sit in at the computer. He's fidgeting. He's not focused, and we try to say, well, if you can do it in this classroom setting, how come you can't do it here? He
He's
just
been
can't.
programmed. His brain has been
Yeah.
programmed that this kind of work only happens in a school environment with a teacher. And the
Mm-hmm.
teacher cannot be mommy, even though he knows I worked in the public school system. The pre-K that he went to was in the building I worked in. I was a teacher assistant. He knows I worked with students. He's met my students. He knows I've worked in children's homes running trials and things like that. But I cannot be mom and teacher. Um, it's just something, I always tell people this. If you're going to teach Josiah something, you better make sure that you're showing it to him exactly how you want him to do it. Because if you try to change it later, he's not going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
He will not accept it at all. So yeah, this whole COVID thing has affected him pretty roughly. As far as Joshua, there was an attempt at teletherapy. Joshua was receiving about 8 ABA sessions for about an hour and a half a week. He also was receiving a 45-minute occupational therapy session and also 2 30-minute sessions of speech. We were trying to do them teletherapy. It did not work. I tried for about a month, and a lot of the therapists told me, you've actually tried a lot longer than other people have.
Mm-hmm.
And that required, me Comcasting from my phone to the TV. The therapist is on that side, and I'm now doing all the work. Now, mind you, I have this experience. I was an ABA therapist. I know what to do. He was not having it. Right,
Now,
Jay?
I think that this is one thing that I wanted to mention and I wanted to ask, like, you had all this experience. Did it help you in any way? Do you feel like it helped you raising two children
It
like
made me feel
this?
worse because for whatever reason, Josiah not so much because Josiah didn't need the whole ABA aspect. Josiah, was very typical in that sense. It was more other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua needed the services because Josiah didn't receive services when he was younger. It was only discovered till he started pre-K that he had
Mm-hmm.
problems. Joshua started receiving services at 18 months old, and before I got approved for the service, it frustrated me knowing that I knew what to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I just couldn't do it with my own child. It was so frustrating. It made me more mad. Like, you know what to do, Jess. Just do it. But it, I
Yes.
couldn't. I
Like
couldn't.
we can agree in that nothing can prepare you because it's so unique. Each experience is so unique that no matter how many times you have worked with children with special needs, it's not never going to be the same for you.
No, no. It's when it's your own child, it's a whole nother story. Because you know what it is. I had a hard time separating the emotions. I loved all the students I worked with. but I was able to maintain that therapist attitude and mentality. This was my child, and I tended to be harder on Joshua than I would on my other students. I knew what my other students' potentials were and what their goals were, what they were capable of at the moment. With Joshua, I just wanted to push him because I wanted it to be fixed quicker. I wanted, I was okay with my students making the progression at the rate they're supposed to, but as a mother, I was like, no, you need to start talking right now. You need to start doing this right now because I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. And that's what the problem was, is that I wanted it done on my time. I should have known this when he was an infant. Everything's done on Joshua's time. Joshua's not going to let it happen unless he wants it to happen. And on that note, every single therapist he had has all told me he is the most stubborn child they have ever worked with. Yep.
I love it. I love it. Now, one thing that she was mentioning, Jessy was mentioning, is very important, that she says she's very emotional. And I have known her like being a very emotional person. Now, what also she has told me before is, and for them to see, is you are like a little bit like the not the opposite completely, but you show a very good balance to her fully emotional behavior. Now, some people might misinterpret this and see it like, okay, so if she's the emotional, he's the cold or very tough person in the family, like the tough guy. But I don't see it like that. How can you express the Jay? How are you, and how does your behavior or your way to be makes counterbalance with how she is?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess just being the rock. It's I'm not cold by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just have to, make sure that everyone's okay. And
Mm-hmm. Yes, like I know that when many of the opportunities we had to talk with Jessy, she actually said about you that you are the rational one. She runs through emotions. You run through rational
Logic.
thinking, logic.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're more rational. Like you're like, okay, so this is a problem. Let's do this. Like what
right.
needs to be done? Let's do it. And she's like going wild, going
Mm-hmm.
crazy. That's a very good thing because that shows a good contrast and what I call like you complement each other. You're like
Mm-hmm.
a good
Absolutely.
a good teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this COVID situation is obviously has changed everything. Now, what are I want to start with you, Jay. What is your advice for parents that are going through these new adventures? That is to know and to raise kids that are so special and so unique, and they have all these things going through their minds. They are not sure about themselves. They don't know if they are capable of raising children like this. They don't know what to do. They don't know what is going on. What are your advices to these kids or to parents and fathers, because you're the father and fathers usually have a tougher time than mothers?
The only advice that I can offer up is to make sure that the parents stay on the same page.
Mm,
Don't knock heads, don't fight over what's going on, or don't bottle things up until you end up exploding and things like that.
mm-hmm,
That's about it. She handles everything, so I just, but I just, yeah, like I said, just make sure that they um, don't live a separate lives. I mean,
mm-hmm,
combat it together, stay on the same page. Don't let it be where it's you versus me and things like that.
mm-hmm,
Because when it gets like that, then it could be very bad.
mm-hmm. What about you, Jesse? What do you have to add to his his advices, what would you have to advise people?
My most important piece of advice is that you are your child's voice. Even if your child can speak, you are your child's strongest advocate. And in order to become a good advocate for your child, you need to educate yourself. You need to learn your rights as a parent where you live. You need to see what qualifies for certain services. Um, Find all your resources and use them to your advantage. Um, you it's you No one will fight for your child the way you will fight for your child. And I'm not going to suggest you go into a meeting acting like a raving lunatic. You go in there um talking professional, talking based on knowledge, and you'll get a lot of respect. I've gone to my meetings. I went for Josiah's meeting when he went to kindergarten. I hired a parent advocate, as I said in my video, because I was pregnant and I was a very high risk pregnancy, and Jason didn't want me to do this meeting on my own. So we got a parent advocate. But ever since then, I've been my son's own advocate. And I've always been very complimented on my knowledge and how I present everything. And they say, yes, you definitely have a point there. Then we're going to give your son this and that. You know, Empower yourself through knowledge. Learn about what your child, and goes for any disability, not just autism. Learn about what's common with that disability. Learn about what kind of services you can get to help with that. That the best thing you can do is empower yourself for yourself and for your child. And the other piece of advice is, which is something I'm still working on, is develop thick skin. Because people are not nice. Children are a reflection of their parents' behaviors. I've experienced a number of people not being very nice to my son or saying not very nice things about my son. And it's made me harder over the years. I never wanted the experience, but if I had to have it, at least I'm developing tougher skin, and not caring as much anymore.
Hmm. That's
Just as
very,
long as my children don't hear it.
yes,
When my kids hear it, that's another story.
exactly. So that's very important point that you mentioned, and I really like that you're mentioning this because we are humans, and we know that humans have always, like, through the ages, no matter what time in history, they love to comment and gossip and say things
Mhm.
to other about other people to other people.
Yeah.
And so it becomes quite a challenge when you have kids that are really special and you don't want these comments to hurt them or affect them in any way.
Yep. Yep.
It is,
Yeah.
you have to really develop a thick skin in every way possible. Quite
Yeah.
a challenge.
It is. And I've had situations where Josiah's come home and told me kids have said something, or one time he told me he ate all by himself at lunch. And trying to comfort him, I had to fight back my tears. I didn't want him seeing me upset, because then he would have realized then there was something really wrong. And I explained to him, well, next time, this is what you do. And I was giving him suggestions on how to get people to get to sit with somebody at lunchtime. Meanwhile, within an hour, I was on the phone with the school saying, why was my son eating lunch alone? What sort of nonsense is that? I said, I don't want that happening again. He had a one-to-one crisis para. I mean, why was his para allowing him to sit completely alone at lunchtime? Even if a child didn't sit with him, she should have sat next to him. But I did not let my son see that side of me.
That's very, very, very important, and I really like that because that's what it comes with the rest of your suggestions and advices. Like, don't let your child see this because that's gonna. They don't like. Usually, children don't understand how adults or other children behave. Imagine them is like they are their feelings can be hurt in many ways, and it's going to affect them in more ways than usually happens to even an adult. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of very important.
Mhm.
So what an adventure you both are going through. It's a lifetime adventure.
Mhm.
What do you feel is going to be the next step? What do you see about your children's future?
I'll let you go first since I'm the one that talks mostly.
Uh,
You go ahead. What do you see about the kids' future? What do you anticipate? Just take it one day at a time, right? The next step, the next step is getting Joshua to be more expressive with his communication. He's already started it. He's, you know, because of this COVID thing, all the services he had were suspended. So we're talking about a 6, 7 month break from nothing. And I am thinking he needed that break because he resumed his speech therapy services. Right now, I'm working on getting him to a program, but all of a sudden he's more than willing to talk. So he's more than willing to verbally imitate any sounds the speech therapists tell him. He tries to use those sounds and create words with it. So right now, the next step is Joshua just becoming more fluent in his expressive language.
Mhm.
As far as Josiah, it's still just 2 days a week going to school, 3 days remote learning. Um, but Josiah will be in fourth grade next year. But when he goes to fifth grade, he'll be going to the middle school where he's going to be switching classes. Um, so that's kind of it makes my heart flutter a little bit because I'm nervous. Because he does get overwhelmed in loud places with a lot of people moving around, and he's gonna have to switch classes, and I'm gonna be concerned about him getting lost in the building. But that's it's two years ahead of time, but that's okay because I started worrying about college when he was born.
Mhm.
So, but that's the next step right now. The next step is Joshua speaking and Josiah and his education, and also Josiah with his understanding of his self-worth,
Mhm.
because Josiah does seem to have not so much a self-esteem issue, but he's expressed how lonely he feels in life. For example, last year he was sitting on the couch with me, and he said, "Mommy, I'm very lonely." Jay and Joshua were sleeping in the bed. I said, "Well, what do you mean you're lonely? I'm sitting right next to you. Joshy and Dad are in the bedroom." He's like, "I know you're here with me, but I feel very lonely. I'm in a very dark place right now." He was 6 years old when he said this. So, yeah, exactly. Another time he did tell me that he didn't belong on this planet, like he didn't fit in here. He must be from another world. It's very interesting how he explains things to me. He
Mhm.
says things in a very uh, descriptive way. Like I don't belong. I belong on another planet. I'm in a very dark place. I totally get what he was saying. I put him in therapy, um, outside counseling, to help him express himself. Um, and it's a real blessing is that his therapist also raised a child with autism. Her son is in his 40s, so she knows what this journey is like already.
Mhm.
Um, so education and Josiah expressing himself and just feeling good about himself is all that matters to me. The him feeling good about himself outweighs the education part.
Mhm. That's very good. That's good. Jay?
just making sure that she's okay.
And that's a very important part. So that's a very, very important part. I'm very happy that you see it that way as well. So thank you very much, Jesse and Jay, for this very, very heartwarming conversation and interview. The idea is for anyone listening and hearing and watching can probably learn and relate to you both. And through the comments in the video, they can ask you questions. So later on, we can plan another video and answer these questions and answer comments about that as well, because I'm pretty sure it's already a very tough world out there, and it's a
Yeah.
crazy world we're living right now.
Yeah.
Your experience right now, it's gonna probably help a lot of people feel less lonely, less
Can, can
crazy.
I add on to that what you're saying?
Yes.
I just want to say out there, you're not alone. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, brother, sister. You're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone at all. And it's okay to feel some of the things you're feeling. You have
Yes. Yes, exactly. So thank you very much, Jay. Thank you very much, Jesse.
to. Thank you. This was
And
fun.
see you in the next video.
Okay, take it easy.
Bye
Bye.
bye.